welcome. We're so excited to start off our year with our workshop series, and we should have a good year. We've got some good guest speakers lined up. So let me go ahead and read Lauryn's bio. So Lauryn Williams is a CFP. She's a 4-time Olympian, 3-time Olympic medalist, and the first American woman to earn a medal in both the Summer and Winter Olympic Games. While pursuing professional sports, Lauryn interacted with not one, but 2 financial advisors that didn't provide the services she needed. She asked friends what they were doing about their finances, and the answers were vague and unsettling. Constantly looking for ways to make a difference in the lives of others, she decided to put the finance degree and MBA to use to fill the gap for young professionals. Eager to learn everything, she then pursued the Certified Financial Planning certification. Her company, Worth Winning, offers virtual services to help young professionals get the answers to the financial questions that matter most to them. Whether that is creating a budget, figuring out a plan for paying off student loans, setting goals for savings, or understanding 401k, Worth Winning is ready to help with personal finance. Thanks again for coming, Lauryn, and we're so excited to hear what you've got to say.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to present today. Been doing quite a bit of presentations. I think everyone is, like you said, trying to educate themselves better, and a lot of people are at home a lot more. So this is now the way we socialize in addition to work and get ourselves educated. And I wanted to kind of change up topic-wise. I do quite a bit on budgeting and, financial basics and literacy. But what I've learned is that there's a lot about money mindset that we don't take into consideration for why we're not able to succeed financially. And so today I want to spend a little bit of time. You see the topic of the presentation is developing a positive money mindset. So what I'm hoping is that I can help you start to change the way that you think about money in this time period. If you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I'm sure Ashley will be watching it. I'm in full screen mode, so I can't see it, but please do jump in, and I'm happy to answer your questions as we go along the way. And I'd love for it to be interactive as well. So if you have things you want to share, I'll even ask you sometimes some questions. So, let's start by talking about our values. So, I said today is a lot about changing our money mindset. When we think about money mindset, we first need to think about, what are our goals and what are our values? So we do often talk about goals as it pertains to money and, where do we want to get? How much do we need to save? But we don't think very much, or we don't talk very much about what are our values and how those play a role in us being able to reach our goals or not. So when we think of values, I'm saying, what is the most important characteristic that is central to your life? Sometimes values is kind of a vague word. People are like, I don't really know what my values are. So I have some examples here on the left-hand side of things that people kind of state as what, is valuable to them. Honesty, success, wealth, support. Family is one that's not on there that people say quite a bit is a large value. Winning, health, dependability. And when I think about these different things, I'm thinking, if health is a value of you, it's something that is so simple that you don't have to spend time managing the impulse to, maybe stay on the couch and eat potato chips. Health is a value to you. You get up and you go do the workouts, and, you may have your cheat day, et cetera. But when it's something that's near and dear to the way that you govern your life, it's a lot easier. It's never easy sometimes to tell somebody something, one of those hard truths. But if honesty is a value, you'll sit down and you'll have that conversation despite how painful it'll be, whereas someone who doesn't value that as much will kind of skirt that and, hide it behind. So you first kind of have to spend some time, and I definitely encourage you to get some, pen and paper out. Like I said, if you want to drop things in the chat as examples, but name some of the things that energize you. So when you're thinking about your values, what are the things that you get super excited for? Versus those things that kind of drain you. So like I said, health was the example that I gave. If that's something that energizes you and, keeps you going, and you're like, you can't wait for the workout, and you like being fit, and, you counting your macros or whatever the case may be, versus, oh my goodness, please, don't make me, I only do this because I want to kind of, stay alive sort of thing, then that's not a value. So when you think of the things that are values, for me, as an example, I went this weekend with my sisters. We went to Detroit, and I really valued the time that I got to spend with them. So one of my, near and dear values is keeping my family together and spending time with them. Because of COVID, we weren't able to do very much, but we were happy to be in an Airbnb, doing game night, and I'm energized and I'm refreshed returning to work instead of, exhausted from a long weekend, because being around them gives me energy. So, this is all about money today, right? Like I said, we got to know what our basic values are, but also like, what are your money values? And so when we think about money values, we want to first ask ourselves, if I can't state what my values are as it pertains to money right off the bat, then think about how I spent recently. So does your spending align with your values? The easiest way to answer that question is to look back on what have you recently spent money on. So, kind of ponder it over a little bit. What was something that you recently bought and you were just super excited about? If there's something that you were super excited about, why were you excited about it? Why was that thing important to you? Something I recently spent money on, let me think. My sister wanted to go, so we go to Creamery Street together. It's an ice cream place when she's here. And so I brought her a Creamery Street gift card for Houston. And I told her, like, in the card, don't eat this without me, sort of thing. So it wasn't so much the actual, gift card and giving the gift to her, but it was like me looking forward to, once again, spending time, because the money is not the thing that I value, but the time and spending time with my family is the thing that I value. So this is a place that we can do that together. And on the opposite side of that, think about things that, you spent money on that you didn't really have a good time, writing that check, or, cash apping or PayPaling that person. Those are things that may not align with your values. And if they don't align with your values, I mean, maybe it's not fun to pay rent, but, keeping a roof over your head is important to you. We're kind of in the midst there, like, okay, well, I don't know, is that, a value or not? No, it's not necessarily a value, but when you think about things you really, really don't like to do, maybe those are expenses that could be cut because they are not things that you value. So I'll give you one other example. This is my iPhone 6. And if you look really closely, you'll see like my case is falling apart. It's because I don't value the telephone. I don't value technology. I need a phone. I need to be able to talk to people. But beyond that, I'm not really into the latest and the greatest. And so people have been telling me all the time, Lauryn, you need a new phone. You run your business from technology and et cetera, et cetera. But, spending $1,000 on the phone, it hurts a lot to me. I can think of lots of other things I'd rather do with my $1,000. So it's not something that I value. And therefore, I still have an iPhone 6, even though I think the 12 is coming out soon and the case is falling apart. I'm probably going to get a new case soon, but. So, now that we talked a little bit about values, I'm frozen here. Maybe. There we go. We also need to think about our emotions. So this is kind of, it's not a therapy session. I don't want you, don't run away. I want you to stay for the whole time. This is really, though, about, like I said, changing our mindset, and we have to kind of acknowledge all these different things. So first, understanding what we value, but also understanding the emotions behind why we do or we don't value things. Understanding the emotions that we feel based on things that we've experienced in life up to this point. And so when we think about money emotions, this is feelings that we experience when you think about money. So what are your money emotions? Do you feel, happiness when you think about money? Do you feel anxiety? Do you feel embarrassed? Like, just simply even thinking about this thing is like, oh my goodness, were you kind of hesitant to join this because you don't want to talk about money? That's an emotion that you feel. The hesitation. What made you feel hesitation before you hit the register button? All the different things that make us feel good or bad are our emotions, and we have to figure out how to best deal with those emotions, understand those emotions to the best of our ability, why we may be feeling them, which is going to be requiring us to look back on our past. And so one of the things that we have quite a bit, and sometimes unfortunately the negative outweighs the positive, is negative money thoughts. So the first thing I want to tell you is that it's normal to have negative money thoughts. We all do. Sometimes we convince ourselves that others are, just super happy and everything's going perfect for them, and looks can be deceiving. And, on the inside, you're struggling quite a bit because you have concerns, you have fear, you have some sort of negative thoughts, and, you try to kind of suppress those things and push them down and not acknowledge them because you feel embarrassed about feeling something negative, or you feel something negative because you think someone else is doing something more positive. So it's okay to have negative money thoughts. What we want to be thinking about, though, is how can we redirect those negative feelings that we have into something that becomes a positive emotion. And the big thing for that is understanding the why. So asking yourself, why do I feel this way? And then trying to challenge yourself to dig a little bit deeper and go beyond that. Because what happens is, in our day-to-day hustle and bustle of life, like I said, we don't have time to, decide, oh, how do I feel? Or, the rent is due and it's the first of the month and you got 30 minutes to do the bills and it's done, or you jump online or whatever the case may be. But you don't really take time to really sit, understand your feelings, understand what your plan is in general, and then understand how your feelings might be prohibiting you from getting to your plan. But if we start by doing these things, it'll be a lot easier for us to decide if we want to, make our plan or adjust our plan accordingly. So I was just saying that, when we talk about money thoughts and emotions, they generally relate to something that has happened to us in the past. And so when we think about how to change things, we've got to think about, where have we been? So money messages are things that are ingrained in us over time. So right now, I'd like you to take a little time and think about, what is the earliest memory of money that you have? This one is very challenging. I do this with my clients all the time, and they're always like, I don't know, I can't remember. And it's just like, there's no right or wrong answer. You don't have to go back to, oh, let me see what happened when I was 3 months old, 4 months old. You don't find your first memory in that regard. There's something that pops into your head and you may be 7. It might be the 11 years old. Just go back to childhood and think about what's that thing that you remember and experience about money. Riding to a store and a parent gave you $1 as an allowance, or whatever the case may be. But once you get that memory, then we have to decide, was that memory first positive or negative? And if your negative memory is the first thing that came up, think about how that memory and what you kind of remembered right now was something that also, like, is it something that you're also, oh, I see a chat. So tooth fairies and counting my quarters. Thank you, Seth. That is a very good first money memory as an example. So yeah, if your first memory was something really pleasant, but how does that actually manifest itself later in life right now? Does, someone else giving you money make you feel really happy? Is it like you have to give something in order to be able to get, I gave up my tooth and so therefore I got the quarters? What is the thing that is most meaningful in the way that earliest memory of money relates to how you are handling money right now? And I think it's a good question to ask, because we don't frequently try to piece those two things together and bridge that gap. If we're making poor decisions right now, we might say, I don't know why I'm making bad decisions, but it may be related to something that happened in the past. And while I think therapy is awesome, going through these exercises on your own might save you the money of deal with it, but it also can help you, like you said, change the trajectory for how you're managing your finances currently. So then the next one says, what messages did you hear growing up? When I think of messages, I'm thinking of conversations that are had in the household that you grew up in. So, was it a grandmother talking to, your mother about upcoming expense and, them maybe sharing the cost of it, or maybe talking about a college fund and, putting additional dollars away for savings? Was it a conversation between the parents in the household, and were they having a discussion, and was it about bills or upcoming expenses or saving for a vacation, or were they having arguments? So what messages did you hear? There's also all these cliches. So one of the ones that I heard quite a bit growing up was, money does not grow on trees. And so it's a little bit confusing for kids, because of well, it's not a plant, it's not a flower, so of course it doesn't grow on trees. But as you get older, you realize that they're saying you can't just make it appear. And that is a money message that I had to deal with. I had to figure out okay, money doesn't grow on trees, but where does it come from? I've got to go out and I've got to, make my money grow from somewhere other than a tree. I've got to put in the hard work to be able to do it. And I'd say the kind of money message that I had to deal with, or that I even still deal with, is, kind of being a workaholic. because if money doesn't grow on trees, and I found out that it grows by working, someone puts money into your pocket when you do work, then I want to be working all the time because I need to get the money because I need it to do things. So, just kind of being honest with yourself about what are the various things, the various aspects of how money is affecting you, or maybe affecting you, is a really important aspect. Then the last one says, what are some things that you've worried about this year? So when we think about money, like I said, there's things that happen in our childhood, there's messages that we've heard, but just to bring it all together, like, where have we been? We can go way back. What if we just went back a little bit? This is a pretty unique year for everyone. But if we went all the way back to September of 2019, over the last 12 months, what are some of the things that you worried about? Do any of those things that come to mind in the last 12 months that you worried about tie into something that you heard as an early money memory? Do any of those things tie into a message that you heard growing up? What else might have happened from what has happened in the last year? Like I said, this is kind of a year notwithstanding where something, a lot of the things that have happened have caused us to worry. But there's also some things too. I want to say that, not all money messages are negative. So when we think about money messages, might be something positive that happened to you in the last 12 months, something that you didn't worry about, or maybe you worried about and then it turned out okay. I want to encourage you to bring up those thoughts as well, because they are just as relevant. We don't want to be all sad Susie here. But generally, when we're talking about changing our mindset, it's because, we want to improve things. We want to better optimize our situation, and we got to dig in, get the negative stuff out so that we can include more positivity. I'm frozen. There we go. All right, so we've talked a little bit about where you have been. We've looked back in the past. You've come up with an example of childhood and things that you heard during childhood. You've thought about something that you worried about in the last year. We said, don't be afraid to use that chat. He said, I'm happy to have people jump in. But now we need to talk about where you are now. So with where you are now, what obstacles are inhibiting you from reaching your financial goals? Right now, today, what's something that you can think of that is prohibiting you from doing what it is that you want to do? What are the barriers to reaching those things? We all can see the hurdles, and what I always like to encourage people to do is don't focus on the obstacles, focus on the opportunities. But we first need to identify the obstacles. So we identify them, but we don't spend a lot of time focusing on them, so that we know, okay, there's an obstacle here. If you focus on the obstacle, you run into it. So if you're a hurdler, like I'm an Olympic track athlete. I was not a hurdler, but if you're looking at the hurdles, you're more likely to hit the hurdles. You don't focus on the obstacle that's in your way. You focus on the opportunity, which is up ahead. And so the hurdlers are keeping their head up, not looking down. And that's focusing on the opportunity. You have to know that the obstacle is there, though. Hurdler is not unaware of it. So what obstacles are prohibiting you from doing what you want to do? We got to identify those things so that we can, know what's in our way, so that we can identify also the opportunities, and then we can go ahead and we can set some goals around what it is we're trying to achieve, what it is we want to achieve. And like I said, once again, we don't want to be all negative Nancy. So we've got the obstacles now. What is something that you're doing really well? So when we think about things that we're doing well, it could be, setting money aside for savings, having a savings account open. I get people that all the time when I ask them what they're doing well, they're like, nothing. Like that's why I'm hiring you, Lauryn. I stink at this. And it's like, no. Everybody is doing something right. By simply calling me, you have the awareness to know that, you don't know everything on your own. And so there it is. That's one thing you're doing well. You have awareness. Like I said, you may have a savings account, even if you're not putting anything in the savings account. That's something you're doing well. Maybe you're saving, but you have no idea how to invest. So now you got this stockpile of cash set aside. That's something you're doing really well. Identify the obstacle. Hey, I want to make my money work for me and, start investing. What's the opportunity to move it from the savings account to the investing account by understanding how investing works? Those are the sorts of things you need to be able to point out, but you have to be writing down right now some of the things that you're doing well. So if you want to drop in some of the things you're doing well in the chat, please do. Uh-oh. I don't know why every time there we go. So when we think about like, okay, where are we now? Where are we now might not be where we want to be. And if there's negative things that are impacting you from a financial standpoint, then we need to think about like, well, why am I being affected by these things? And how am I being affected by these things? So this next slide says health equals wealth. And I think a lot of times we don't acknowledge the idea that our finances and our financial plan affects our health. So if we have no plan and we feel a lot of anxiety, if those were the kind of emotions that you listed when we got through that first slide, sadness, embarrassment, shame is a really big one. If those are the things you're feeling, not only are they emotions that are relevant to your finances, they're relevant to the way that you're governing your life, governant to the way that your body is creating chemicals and dealing with the feelings that you feel. Have you ever been scared by someone? Your heart starts to beat really fast. Like something happens internally because of what's going on around you externally. Or you start to run away from something that you're afraid of. Those are the sorts of things that we need to be thinking about. Like, how is the things that I'm doing affecting my health? And finances will definitely affect your health. They can affect your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health. So you may not want to go work out because you don't want to spend the money on the workout person or something like that. Or you're just, really sad. Like I said, once again, you can't get yourself out of bed to even get moving around. Now, like I said, I don't want it to be all negative. It's also some positive things, So I see here in the chat, Seth can definitely relate to doing well at saving, but yeah, being poor at investing. So that's exactly what I was saying earlier was there's things that you are doing well, pat yourself on the back, acknowledge them, but also, don't be afraid to figure out like what's stopping me from doing this next step. If I feel fear because I don't know this thing, how can I get what I need to know more about this? Good at planning for the future. That's awesome, Allison. So yeah, if you feel good about planning for the future, you have a really clear plan, then you're going to feel a lot more energized, and mentally you're going to feel a lot more free because you have a plan. Now we know things don't always go as planned, but the fact that you have a plan gives you that less stress, like I said, better mental space, more capability to take on other things because that one aspect of life is kind of nice, neat, and organized. So if anybody wants to list some ways that they've been impacted, positively or negatively by, their mental, spiritual, or physical health and how money is tied into that, please do drop that in the chat. And let's take a moment about just to think about how is your finances impacting your health. All right, we shall move forward then. I know there might be a little bit of delay. It takes a little while to type. Happy to jump back in and go back to those things. Having money to buy healthy foods versus fast food. So yeah, that is a big deal. Figuring out your budget, like you said, if you have a plan and you have a budget in place, then there may be more money available to be able to purchase the healthy foods versus the fast foods. We know that the healthy foods get a rap for being more expensive than the fast foods, but actual real price comparison and most of the data shows that, it's mostly that the fast food is convenient. It does end up costing more. And it also, like you said, it poorly impacts your health. So it doesn't help you, get in a good financial space, achieve your financial goals, but it takes time as well. If you want to have the healthy foods, you got to plan ahead. You got to do meal prep. You got to go to the grocery store. A lot of people are affected by living in food deserts. So if there's not a good grocery store nearby, you end up at a convenience store and having to pick things up from there, which are one, more expensive, and two, less healthy. So lack of enough finances to be able to get to a proper grocery store is one problem that might be affecting your health. But then also on the, the positive side of things, you may have the finances to, order online, have the food delivered, make sure that it's fruits and vegetables, also have enough money to have the time to prepare the food, whereas another person might be working a double shift in order to, keep enough money coming in to keep the household going and doesn't have time to go to the grocery store. So those are all things to be thinking about. Money to get healthcare was another thing someone brought up. Lack of money to get the proper healthcare. So, if you don't have proper healthcare, then you can't take care of what you need. So these are all very, very good. And let me go back. Examples of how your finances, how your finances can be affecting your health. Lack of the money to pay for good health insurance means you're stuck with maybe government health insurance, or a lesser health insurance, a more affordable insurance, but doesn't offer as much, which doesn't give you as much care for the things that you need. And so now you find yourself kind of skimping on healthcare, or skimping on pills, taking your prescriptions every other day. We've got to really think about, like, what can we do to adjust our finances so that we can improve our health? And where do I find the better healthcare? Who can I talk to about getting it if, I can't afford it, I can't afford what's normal, or what's proper for someone to get. It's not normal. Everybody needs healthcare. But if I can't afford proper healthcare, what are some ways that I can get access to the things I need, and what are the resources I can use to be able to better get care in light of my financial situation? So then when we think about, okay, our health is wealth, but also who are we around that is playing a part of our money mindset? And when I think of, who I'm around, I think of, like, my Fave Five. So T-Mobile had this, ad that ran, I don't know, probably 15 years ago now. I'm old. But it was all about, the Fave Five, and, I think you got free calling between the two people. But we all do have an inner circle of people, and we need to also be looking at, who is that inner circle, and how is that inner circle affecting me? So do you feel like you have the right people around you to help you accomplish your goals? And when I say the right people, like I said, that could be the people that you're interacting with on a regular basis. That could be, friends and family. That could be the right team. Do you have an accountant? Do you have a financial planner? Do you have a financial coach? Do you know where to find the free resources if none of those kind of people are an option to be hired? Do I have people who care about me, who will support me? And you don't always need a financial professional, but you do have people that you interact with on a regular basis, like I said, right underneath your own roof usually, that are going to affect the way that you make decisions. So if you surround yourself with people who are constantly making poor financial decisions, you are more likely to make poor financial decisions as well. So take a minute, think about who you hang out with, think about the last thing they asked you to do or participate in. The weekend turn up is one that, my clients talk to me about all the time. Where you feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses, you have to buy, a second round of the $12 drinks, or, you got to eat an appetizer, a meal, and a dessert because it's the weekend. And, before you know it, you have kind of blown your budget, and you don't have the ability to save because, you felt the pressure of keeping up with everybody. Someone just dropped in the chat, friends like to travel. That is the perfect example, Viri. Everyone, like, it's the in thing to do right now, and people are picking up and they're going, and you're just like, man, how can they afford this? What am I not doing right? And for fear of missing out, you may swipe your card and go on that trip with them, and then you're paying for it for the next 12 months. The thing that we might be doing too is that those friends, you feel like they're affording it and you're the only one charging it. Maybe everyone's charging it. What we don't know is what is happening behind the scenes, because we don't spend a lot of time talking about it. So traveling, eating out, just kind of keeping up, feeling that need to keep up and not really stick to what your budget is because of the people you're around is a really hard thing to deal with. But the way to negate that is to start having money discussions. So before we leave this slide, I want to say, take a second, consider who are your Fave Five. Is it your children that are in the household? Is it your parents that are maybe in the household, or you're constantly calling? and what they're up to, or they want to go shopping. I know my grandma loved going shopping. And so she would take me and my mom out pretty much every weekend. And, she would pay for some things, but also my mom needed to pay for some things. But it was more like that was a way they liked spending time together, but it wasn't always cost effective. So every single weekend shopping is, a way to fill your time, but also it's expensive and it may not allow you to be able to do these other things you want to do. For me, like I said, I would definitely say travel is, like I said, you hit the nail right on the head. In my friend group, it's a lot of people that are, oh, I'm going here. Oh, I'm at this. And, I lived in Miami. I lived in Detroit, Pennsylvania, Miami, and now I live in Texas. So my friend group is spread out all over the country. I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers. Everybody lives in a different state except for me and my youngest sister. She lives in Houston. I live in Dallas. So we're not nearby. And so, 5 sisters and 2 brothers. There's 7 birthdays per year. Someone's always having a baby. Someone's always getting married. Then there's Thanksgiving. And it's just travel on top of travel, in addition to, like I said, a friend's 30th birthday or a friend's whatever milestone thing that's happening. The trips can really, really wear you out. And it's sometimes hard to say, I can't make it. I want to be here for this thing, but I didn't get enough notice. I didn't get to save. And I just don't want to miss it. I just don't want to miss it. I feel like I want to be there to spend the time with the people that I care about. But this is where, like I said, the most important thing you can do is start having conversations with the people that you care about and having those meaningful conversations. So I know it is not easy to have money conversations, but it is definitely necessary. So when we think about money conversations, we first need to have conversations with ourselves. So when we talk about having conversations with ourselves, it's what am I thinking about money? What am I saying about money? So think about the last thing that you said, maybe prior to getting on this call. So you probably had a conversation in some sort, form, or fashion about money today. This coffee is too expensive. I need to go buy fabric softener today. Whatever the case may be, you had some sort of thought or conversation, even if it's a basic one, about money. And how did you feel when you had to, discuss that thing? My price is XYZ. I, met with a prospective client this morning. So I had to, explain how my pricing worked. All of those are money conversations, and conversations being things that come out of your mouth about money, which convey what your mindset is. And this was a really, really tough thing for me to kind of get a grip on, is not just the conversations I'm having with the people around me, but the way that I talk about money to others and creating a more positive picture. Because I realized that a lot of my money messages, a lot of my perspectives, I was pushing on others. People never want to spend money on this. And that's what I was saying about my business in the very beginning. No one values financial planning, so they're not going to pay for it. That is a money message that has energy around it. It's creating, negative energy for me. And it doesn't, bode well when you're trying to get clients. While I wasn't saying that specifically to them, that energy was being exuded, and I wasn't talking about money in a positive way that didn't make people want to become my client. So kind of shifting the way that you discuss money and thinking, am I saying something positive or am I saying something negative? Not only am I saying something positive or negative, but is what I'm saying fact, or is it how I feel? Because how you feel is not necessarily what is actually happening. I feel like nobody values financial planning, but there are tons of financial planners all over the country, and lots of them are making a very good living. That's not, I make it fact because I'm like, oh, that's how it is, but that's actually how I feel. So you have to stop, pause, and kind of acknowledge what kind of challenges do I have as it pertains to the way that I discuss money. And how can I better verbalize positive messages when I'm talking to myself and others as I convey messages about money? Once you've nailed that down, then you can start saying, well, now I need to talk to these people in my immediate circle. So we just talked on the previous page about your fave 5. And maybe you answered that question and wrote something down about, like, gosh, you're right. Everybody around me is negative. They're talking about how broke they are all the time. Like, I'm ditching these friends. So I would say, pause before, don't just throw them off the ledge or throw the baby out with the bathwater. These are probably people that you deeply care about. And though they may not be in the best of financial situations, or they may not be contributing to, creating positive energy for you around financial situations, that the thing you can do first is try to take action to create that energy, create that environment for you all to have good financial conversations. So when I'm thinking about good financial conversations, the one thing that usually holds people up from even starting a financial conversation is the fact that they feel like they're going to have to talk about dollars and cents. So we've just done a whole presentation. I think we're 6 or 7 slides in, and I've not talked to you about, how much money do you make, or, 10 times 12 equals 120, or whatever the case may be. It does not all have to be about numbers. When we're having money discussions, it's about strategy. And when you decide you want to talk to someone about money, think about how you can have a discussion with them and not bring up any numbers. So like I said, what are people most afraid of? People are afraid that you're going to ask them how much money they make, how much money they have in the bank, and can you borrow some money, right? Or that you're gonna judge them if you know any of those answers. So whether they have a little or a lot. It's like a comparison game. So that's what makes people kind of clam up and say, like, let's just not talk about money at all. There are tons of ways to have discussions about money, though, that do not require you to talk about money. So let's think about it. You could ask someone, what is your strategy for your 401k? I hear people talking about this employer match, but I don't understand how it works. Do you have a 401k and do you have an employer match? They answer yes or no. Can you help me know more about it? So by asking for help to start with, you've opened up the door for them to start talking to you and to create a positive, because people love to help others, especially if, like I said, we're talking in your fave 5. So someone's going to be excited to be like, yeah, okay, my employer matches 4%, and that means you also get 4% of whatever you put in, and now we're saving 8%, and that's great. But I even do more than that. I put 10% in because I know blah, blah, blah. You still don't know how much they're putting in. You still don't know how much they're making, but they were able to help you with strategy. So asking things in question format, but then also maybe volunteering information first before you ask a question of them. If it's going to be about their personal finances and you feel like they're not going to be open to hearing it or, answering that question, maybe say something like, I'm really struggling with blah, blah, blah. I'd love to be able to make a strategy around that. Do you have any tips? And then leave it kind of open-ended. And then they can start telling you, like, I'm saving too, or I'm not saving at all. And then now you got a rebuttal. Okay, well, can we make a savings plan together? So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to think about those people in your inner circle and who you don't want to be left behind. So that was a big driver for me in starting my business was, I didn't know a lot about money. I wanted to learn about money, but I also wanted to be able to share what I know with the people that I care about. Because I don't want to get to retirement age and, be ready to go on these trips and all the travel we did in our 20s and 30s catch up with us, and my friends be not at retirement, but instead trying to pay off credit card debt with no retirement funds, and not feeling very healthy because they got to work at 60 or 70 or, whatever age we decide to retire. And so with that in mind, I'm thinking all the time about how can I share information that I know. And like I said, yes, I am a financial professional, but you don't have to be in order to share what you know. You have things that you're doing with your finances that you're doing well, and those are the things you can share with others, and others have those things with you. And if you care about it, you guys can make those plans together. So it's not always easy to talk about money, but it is a very necessary part of your growth. Now, I will say also that preparation is key. So you don't just want to walk in a room and say like, all right, I'm hanging up. I'm going to go talk to so-and-so about money. So-and-so probably has some money emotions they got to deal with. You might have some things. And if you don't ask the questions in the right way, so I just gave you some of the examples, there are ways you got to think about like, okay, what do I want to learn from this conversation? Write that down first. What are some questions I can ask that wouldn't make me feel uncomfortable or wouldn't make the person I'm talking to feel uncomfortable? And what are some ways that I can, respond in the event that the person does feel uncomfortable to disarm them? So before you head into a money conversation, do those things, but it's definitely worthwhile to do this with the people that you care about. All right. And so when we think about like doing things with people that we care about, we also have to think about, like I said, it's not always easy. So what if you have to have a conversation with a parent because you generally, things go as planned, even though no one ever plans for this. The person that's older than you should pass away before you want to have a conversation about them passing away. So we're on the get rich or die trying scheme. And I wanted to circle back to one of the toughest conversations being, how do you discuss kicking the bucket? But let's fast forward to you possibly kicking the bucket. So passing away. So imagine you pass away today. What would you regret not having done? And so this is us transitioning to, like, I know it sounds morbid, but how are we going to set goals? We need to come up with what we want to accomplish, and what better way to think about what we want to accomplish to think about, like, oh my goodness, I ran out of time and I didn't get to do this and this. Simply, sometimes I have people and they're like, I don't know how to do goal setting. I don't know what I want to accomplish. If I ask you the question in this way, you probably have a few things that you said right off the bat. If you kick the bucket today, what would you regret not having done? Maybe having children, maybe getting married, purchasing a first home, ever leaving the country, ever leaving the state, getting on your first airplane, helping more people. Like a lot of people I get frequently with my clients, I want to volunteer, but I don't have the time to. And so you get to the point of when you're going to pass away, you didn't have time to, because you were working just to kind of pay bills, to work to pay bills. How can I better organize myself? How can I reduce my expenses so that I don't have to work so much, so that I can now go out and I can volunteer? So traveling to Europe, that's something I would definitely, say would be something that you would regret. And so it's like, how can I think about traveling to Europe and not having get to do that? Obviously, we're in the middle of COVID, so we got to put that on hold. But this is a great time while you can't go to be planning for when you can go. When the world opens, I'd love to be here, and here's what I need to do to get there. So then we can talk about how to set a goal to get you, Allison, to Europe. Swimming with the sharks. This is not what I want to do. Like, we're talking about kicking the bucket. That increases your chances of kicking the bucket gargantuanly. I feel like, I'm sure it's safe. Like, people do it all the time and the sharks don't turn on them. But if you want to do it, Allison, by all means, let's plan to get you there. And then giving out a scholarship. So like I said, that's exactly what I was just saying. A lot of people want to be able to give, but they don't feel like they have the means to be able to do so. And it's generally because people don't feel like they're saving enough, or they don't have clarity on whether they're saving enough. So you might be saving something, but you haven't done any real calculations to say, okay, I want to retire by this date. I want work to become optional by this date, or I want to go on vacation by this date. Instead, you're just putting $50 away every month instead of saying, okay, I need $500 a month away. Let me rework my budget to make sure I have $500 a month put away. And oh, by the way, when I reworked my budget, I didn't just find 500, I found 750. So now I got 250 other dollars that I don't even need. And now that can fund my scholarship fund. So that's what we need to be thinking about as it pertains to setting goals. If something was going to happen, life was over, or you didn't have very much time, what would you regret not having done? You got your list of things. Allison shared it with us. Thank you. And now you can work backwards and say, what do I need to do to accomplish those goals? All right. So if we're setting goals, we first have to start by saying, what's my priority? Allison just showed us 3 different things that she wanted to do. Well, what if you can't do all 3 at the same time? Like I said, what if you're limited? In my example, I had $750. That we found in this budget. So with that 750, what are my top priorities? So we got to make a list. Thing number 1, I just have to be able to do is get to Europe. All right, well, maybe I want to save $500 a month toward Europe. That leaves me with $250. Swimming with the sharks is not that expensive. I can save for that. Let me save $100. So now that's $600 of my dollars accounted for. And then the other 150, I'd love to be able to give out a scholarship, but I don't need to do that right now. I'll save $150 a month until I get to $1,000, and then I'll start giving a scholarship out every, year or something. So when you think about it, what are your top priorities? What are the things that you want to accomplish or that are most important to you on the list of goals you've created? So like I said, generally retirement is a big one for people. I'm tired of working now. I don't want to work anymore. I want to retire in 3 years, even though I'm in my 30s. I hear that all the time. Well, if that is truly a priority and not just the complaint, how do I govern myself accordingly? That generally would say like decrease your expenses quite a bit, increase your savings quite a bit, and let's get to it. You can definitely do it. Okay, we got some examples here. So pay off debt is a priority, and then buying a home. All right, so if those are our priorities, then we need to set our plan up. And like I said, using my example of $750, and this is another important thing too, is that just because you have one thing that is the priority doesn't mean that you don't get to do anything else. So you can, if it's an urgent priority, you can say, I'm only going to put my $750 toward my paying off debt, but that's also going to make you, feel a little bit sad that you're not saving for a home. Would it be better and would it make you feel better if you put, like I said, $500 toward paying off debt and then $250 toward buying a home? There's no wrong answers. And I think that's a lot of the times the thing that holds us up is we get kind of paralysis saying like, oh my goodness, I don't know what the right thing to do is. And so therefore I do nothing. And before you know it, 2 years has passed and you haven't really accomplished either of the goals. So you can put $500 toward paying off debt and also be saving $250 to buy a home. That's completely fine. I always say like an emergency fund is a thing too. So if you want to pay off your debt, you got to also get your emergency fund in there and then, buy the home, because you don't want to buy the home and then the bank account be empty and then the water heater break, real thing that happened. And now you have the debt come around again because you didn't have the emergency fund in place. So you also, when you're creating this list of priorities, think about the blind spots. Think about the other things that I'm not thinking about. Like if I want to go swimming with the sharks, how much does that cost? Well, it costs $300 to swim with the sharks for the day, but do I also need the swim with the sharks training, or do I need the scuba gear, or, whatever the case may be? So what are the potential blind spots around the things that I want to accomplish, and how can I also plan for those? So then on the slide we have here, given your current money behavior and with your priorities in mind, what would you want to change to ensure that you can live the life you desire? So if you've been kind of following along and, writing your own things out on some paper, these are things you want to do, but maybe you haven't been able to do. You now have goals. You've hopefully listed those goals again in priority order. What can you change to help you get to those goals? If there's no dollars right now to set aside to do the pay off debt, to pay off the home, to travel to Europe, to swim with the sharks, where can I, change something in order to be able to live this life that I want? And usually the answer to that is circling back to where we were at the top, thinking about what does our spending align with our values. So if you bought a $200 pair of shoes yesterday and it made you feel really good yesterday, but if I said, do you want to swim with the sharks or do you want to have a $200 pair of shoes, and you told me swim with the sharks, then our spending is now aligning with our goals. And now we can make changes so that we can start saving money to swim with the sharks. We never really thought, because it's like, oh, swim with the sharks is something I want to do eventually, and shoes I can just go pick up at the mall. We do that thing that's kind of easy and, autopilot. Whereas if we know really clearly what our goals are, we've wrote them down to make them real. Now we can make a plan to be able to accomplish those things. So now we should have a good list of priorities. Every time I click, something bad happens. So when we think about priorities, we got that all done. We also, like I said, need to think about like what we want to change. So best way to think about how we want to change something, let's reflect on what's happened recently. We don't need to go all the way back to childhood to understand how we can better budget. Usually looking at the last 6 months and up to the last year, gives us a really good idea of how we can make changes. So if there's one thing you could change about the past year, what would it be? There's something that jumps out for everybody immediately. What would you have done different in the last 12 months from a money perspective? What is something that you spent money on that you maybe shouldn't have spent money on, or that you wish you could have, taken back? For me, let me think what I did recently. Oh, I know what I did. So I did some landscaping in June. I think I mentioned to you all, I live in Dallas, Texas. You don't plant in June. It is too hot for anything to live that you plant in June. I threw the plants in the ground. I, come up on a little extra bonus money, and I was just so excited to get the plants in the yard that I didn't wait. So delayed gratification, if nothing else, is the best habit to be able to teach yourself. If I just would have waited till now, it's planting season, the weather has broken, my plants could be flourishing, we're getting rain on a regular basis. I wasted money by throwing the plants in the ground. They were pretty for a couple days, and then I was trying to feverishly water them, and then they were wilting, and it was just sad. So that's a change that I would make in the past year. Don't waste money on kind of impulsive purchases. And if I didn't waste money on the impulsive purchase, my dollars would be better spent on something else that I want to do. I work with a financial planner as well, and we just set my kind of savings goals. And I didn't have a clear savings goal because I was kind of in transition between, two different types of work, and we just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I was like, oh, now I have a clear savings goal. What I wish I would have done with that plant money that I have the dead plants in the yard for, is put it toward my savings goal. So there may be many things you want to change, but just focusing on one event, one thing that kind of happened will give you some perspective on how to move forward. So another thing is sometimes people think about an actual event that happened in their life. Maybe someone passed away in the past year. Maybe there was a big car accident, or there, some kind of life-changing event that happened that not necessarily was related to money, but if it's something that you could change, it also gives you kind of okay, in light of this thing and how this thing made me feel, now I can focus. I have some perspective on, what I would do differently. So another example, my grandmother passed away in March. No, she didn't pass away in March. Her birthday was in March. She passed away in June. And so if there's something I could change, I would have spent more time, going to visit her. So in the last couple of years, I go maybe once a year. And I was just kind of always busy when all these other little things came up, and I'm like, or I'll be in Florida, and it'd be a 3-hour drive, and I'm like, I don't really feel like making the drive. Something I would definitely change I'd have the savings, rent the car, drive the 3 hours, because you don't get that time back, sort of thing. But making your budget accordingly based on things that kind of, you have a big kind of impact on you, and that definitely has a big impact on me, will help you change and, like I said, realign your budget with your spending. Someone said they bought a car before COVID hit, found out that they are working from home, so they didn't need the car. And so it's okay, well, I got this thing, and obviously nobody could see that COVID was coming, but what can I do in light of the fact that now I don't need this car? Now I have a car note every month. Maybe I can get rid of this car and, get myself something a lot cheaper, so that when I go back to work, I have a car that's paid in full, or, something just get me from point A to point B, since I won't be driving that much anymore. And now I have money to put in my bank account. So little things like that, like I said, that's where you get the perspective to be able to move forward. So last but not least, I want you all, just like I said, to start kind of writing down your goals. I think we created a really good framework to think about what we've experienced, what might be holding us back from reaching our goals, what are the things that we value, what are the things we want to be able to achieve and accomplish. And now it's time to write our story. Like I said, Allison, I want you to go swim with the sharks. I don't want to do that, but that's your story, and I want you to write it. What's your 1-year goal to be able to do that? If it's something that's going to take 3 years, or you're okay with it being 3 years, then put that in your 3-year goals. And then, like I said, scholarship. I imagine a scholarship is something big. Maybe it's something where, like I said, you're doing $500 to students here or there. I don't know what your vision is for that, but maybe that goes in your 5-year goal, sort of thing. So go ahead and write down what those 1, 3, and 5-year goals are, and try to make those things become a reality by putting the action items next to them that are going to help you reach those goals. So what can I change to help me get to this goal in a year or less? What do I need to do to make sure I'm ready to go for goal number 2, or the other goal, in 3 years or less? Like I said, we always have those things kind of in the back of our mind, and it's like a coulda, woulda, shoulda. One day I will, maybe after blah 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 happens. And really, the only thing that's stopping us is ourselves. And if we decide to hold ourselves accountable to creating a plan, writing that plan down and making it real, and then having a positive mindset to move forward toward that goal, also surrounding ourselves with the people who are going to cheer us on toward that goal. So we're going to say, stay home. Don't buy the $12 drink because I want you to go swim with those sharks. Put that $12 in the swim with the sharks account. Then we can be really happy about the way that we're handling and managing our money. So with that, I'll leave it to you all to ask me any questions. Thank you for participating via the chat. I'm glad I figured out how to be able to see it and the screen at the same time. I'm happy to help. Ashley, do you want to jump back in?
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. I love that. Goal setting is always something that is so good to go over, and I loved hearing your perspective throughout that. But yeah, and thanks again, everyone, for all your questions and kind of participating with the chat. Here's Lauren's contact information if you have anything for her. And I've watched a couple of her YouTube videos and listened to her podcast, and it's really good. I love it. So.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The purple thing that you see on the screen is a podcast. So I love, like I said, all about having money discussions. This is kind of like my jam. Listening is spelled wrong. I just looked at that. But the podcast is all about other people telling their money story, so you don't have to feel alone. I think that's the thing that holds people back the most, is that they feel like I'm the only one that has debt. I'm the only one who blah, blah, has 200K of student loan debt or whatever. And then this is all about telling people's stories so that, you're not alone.
Yeah, love it. Well, cool. And thanks, everyone. We'll have this up on our YouTube channel as well for you to watch. But thank you again, Lauren. Hope you have a good day. Thanks so much.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Bye.